This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond. Delighted to have our weekly audience as we have been having members of the governor's cabinet and state agency heads. And as we continue that this week, we welcome back to This Week in Richmond Sam Nixon. I almost said Delegate Sam Nixon because we knew you as that for many years before you became the CIO of the Commonwealth, the head of the Virginia Information Technologies Agency, VITA.
That's correct.
I almost stumbled over that.
Great to be back.
Yes, glad to have you here. And as we were talking before the show started, we'd planned this conversation with you and Secretary Jackson, who has lost her voice. Mm-hmm. She'll be on at some future time. Long before, about 2% of the state servers had some difficulty. So as I told another friend, I guess it was a slow news time, and so the 2% of the servers made quite a bit of news, at least here in the Richmond metropolitan area, for a short time. So we're having this conversation after things are pretty well back to normal in just a short time. So maybe start a conversation to update our viewers, because some of them may not be reading it in their newspapers in some parts of the Commonwealth.
I guess very quickly, to the best of our knowledge, and we're still trying to analyze and figure out exactly what happened, but there was a subset of hard drives that are on this very large storage array. And the best way to picture that, it physically looks like a couple of large refrigerators. There's a A side and a B side, and it's fully redundant. It's supposed to never fail, but a subset of disk drives we think had a hardware failure, and the system didn't fail over the way that it was designed to. So when that occurred, there were about 79 agency servers out of 3,200 servers, about 2%, that lost connection. And when that happened, the agency applications weren't able to operate. So thankfully, this is what we call our Tier 2 storage. It's not our upper high performance tier, a little bit less expensive, but there were about half those servers were test development systems used by developers, but the other half involved some production systems. So thankfully, as of this morning, it looks like we pretty much have everything restored, and we're going through working with agencies, making sure that they let us know, yes, it looks like it's now fixed. So it's, and we always say that you want to design the system so they don't break, but if they do break, you need to have the people, processes, technology in place to be able to quickly restore. So that's what we've been focused on for the last couple of days.
And when you're saying the last couple of days, we'll make sure our viewers know that we're having this conversation on Tuesday the 13th.
Correct.
The program, some folks will be seeing the program on Friday, others on Sunday, and then the following Tuesday. So it was roughly over the weekend, or about a 3-day period, that this problem?
It was. It first revealed itself about 9:30 on a Friday morning, and then 2 a.m. the next morning, the array was back up and servers were talking to it. But because there were essentially read writes that were in process when the failure occurred, that's where we encountered some database corruption issues, things like that. So restoring backups, those kind of things, usually take a lot of time. It takes a lot less time today than it used to because we don't back up to tape very much. Almost everything is a solid state backup directly to a disk. So that quickens the process quite a bit. But yeah, it extended into a couple of days, which of course is not good. But nonetheless, we think we're in pretty good shape right now.
And although I'm sure the affected agencies, it was important to them, it didn't affect DMV or some of the larger ones.
It didn't affect any of the big, I'd say, brand name agency applications, if I could put it that way.
Yeah.
And no agency was dead in the water. There was nothing like that. But for those agencies that did have impacts, of course, those particular applications or programs weren't able to operate during that time. So thankfully, it was I'd say about a day and a half of business hours worth of outage. It's too much, but thankfully it wasn't anything more than that.
Right. Now, this is your area of expertise, so I'll stumble in with a question. Is this something that you learned something from, or is it just one of those fluke things that happens, and are you still trying to figure it out?
That's a great question. Anytime there's I prefer the word service interruption, but if there's an outage or a failure, as most people know who will see the program, the Commonwealth years ago made the decision to outsource all of the IT infrastructure to Northrop Grumman. So in our contract, the state's contract with Northrop Grumman that VITA oversees, Northrop Grumman is obliged to the state to work with their vendors to prepare what's called a root cause analysis. And from that RCA, there were almost always lessons learned. So David, we're in a constant state of improvement. Every time something happens, if there's something we did wrong, we'll go and correct that. If there was a piece of equipment that maybe was not up to snuff, we'll go back and ask, okay, what do we need to do differently? Did we have the right patches, firmware installed on the equipment? Was there something we did right or wrong along the way? So yes, every time there's one of these, we ask that question. Was our communication plan sound? Did we engage people in the right way? In this case, we stood up what we call a war room, in which the Northrop Grumman, the storage vendor, this is EMC, and VITA personnel all to get together about once every hour and a half over a 24-hour period, or longer in this case. We sort of whiteboard where we are, start working down a punch list of issues that we know about and that we're hearing about from the agencies.
Although anytime this happens, I'm sure it's a time you don't want to happen, obviously. Right. But I think I'm right that it's been probably since 2010 that there was any significant problem that.
It's interesting. We were talking about this earlier. We've actually had a few network issues where maybe there was a fiber cut at a critical point in the network that did not only affect state government, but much broader array that actually had a bigger business impact. We were talking about this morning the fact that there have been some things that happened that really had a bigger impact on the Commonwealth, but this particular one, because of the nature of it, the fact that it involved a piece of equipment in the data center, gained an additional amount of attention, and some of that, frankly, is because of a situation that occurred a couple of years ago that was wider spread. So I think that's why this one got a little bit more attention.
This is an area that you're not simply an agency head, but something that you've spent a significant part of your working life working in this area. So I'll ask you another question. They talk about smartphones and phones getting smarter. Is the whole process still evolving as far as the IT service that's provided to the Commonwealth? Is it getting smarter too?
I think the answer is yes. We've been on this modernization journey now since about 2005, 2006. And so we call that transformation. And right now, about 96% of the in-scope environment has been transformed, which means that they're part of the enterprise network, they're part of the agencies, are part of the enterprise email. They fall under our security umbrella, our network monitoring, our server monitoring, our process controls in terms of making sure equipment is refreshed and updated, has the latest patches. A lot of attention is given to security. They now have access to the state help desk, which they didn't have before. So in that regard, yes, but we're actually in our second and third wave of desktop upgrades. The mainframes, there's 2 large mainframes, both of those have been upgraded. Almost all of the security infrastructure has been upgraded. Even the software that we use, or Northrop Grumman uses on the help desk, that's been upgraded. So there are a lot of things we do behind the scenes that improve the environment, make it more reliable, more resilient, more secure, that are intangible benefits of what we do that most people don't see.
I know that even in our small office, the computers, they can get out of date so quickly. 2 laptops, same brand, same kind,
Right.
a new wireless printer. The newest laptop, you could print to it immediately. The other one that was about 1.5 years old, we had to upgrade its operating system to be able
Right,
to do it. So I can
right.
imagine that in a large venture like information technologies with the Commonwealth, that it's a constant challenge.
It's one of the things that I learned when I became the agency head. As you know, I was a legislator. I thought I really knew a lot about what was going on. But one of the surprises to me, David, was that how far-flung state government is geographically. So there are, I think it's 2,241 sites from one end of the state to the other. There's not a single locality where there isn't at least one computer that's connected or interconnected back to the state network. Wow. So, and we support every connection, every circuit, every piece of equipment for those agencies that are part of the executive branch. There are a few exceptions, but basically the executive branch IT, we're responsible for that. So it's very far-flung, and there's, I believe there's 58,700 desktops, 2 mainframes, 2 data centers, 2,000 network or circuits. So there's a lot of assets, if you will, in the environment.
Yes. Now, we were talking some before we were taping, and you said it'd be fine if I asked you on the air. So you served as a member of the House of Delegates.
Right.
In a way, it was a big jump to go to this full time, even though that had been the field that you were working in. So are there things that you miss about the legislature and other matters that you're kind of glad you've moved on?
Well, there are definitely parts of having served as a member of the House of Delegates that I miss. And I see a picture of the state capitol in the background behind you. So the thing I always think of is I really thought it was a real privilege to get to just walk in that building as a representative of the people. I mean, I really thought that was something special. And when I announced my retirement, one of the first calls I made was to the former clerk, Bruce Chamberson, and I talked a little bit about that. As you know, Bruce just had such a love for the legislature. So we both kind of reminisced about the privilege of serving in Jefferson's capital, and particularly the House of Delegates, of course. And so I miss that. I miss the committee work. I really enjoyed the details of policy. And I certainly miss the people. I have some real friends that I made, and I won't say left behind. I still stay in touch with some folks. But yeah, those parts of it I do miss.
Now, I had some questions to ask you about technology, but while we've got you here, there's bound to be something else that you thought, I thought maybe David would ask me about this and I could make some comments. So let's just make this just open for you. What else could you help tell our viewers about the information technologies that serve them as citizens and many of them taxpayers of the Commonwealth.
Absolutely. You know, I remind the VITA people and our vendors and the agencies we work with that yes, we enjoy the technology because we're all kind of geeks at heart, but what we're really here to do is to use the technology to enable the business of government to serve the citizens. And so those, you know, you have good days and you have bad days, no matter what kind of profession you have. But in our case, I think it's helpful to remind ourselves that's really what we're here to do. So I think I always try to bring a taxpayer's perspective to what I do and ask others to do the same thing. So I think from a taxpayer's perspective, I think it's important for them to know, particularly as it concerns IT security, that we know how important it is that we protect the state network and citizen data from unauthorized access. And that state network is attacked tens of thousands of times a day. So again, this is sort of hidden from view, but we are working very, very hard every day to block those attacks and also monitor what's happening behind our firewalls so that if someone's doing something they're not supposed to, we can detect it, mitigate that. We're in touch with Homeland Security and the FBI pretty regularly about attacks they see, things that we encounter, we report back to them. So I think taxpayers should, we're ever diligent, but I hope they provide some comfort in knowing that we take that very, very seriously. Doesn't mean something can't happen, but if it does, we're sitting here ready to react to that, and we do react to those things every single day.
Thank you very much, Sam. And if I called you delegate before, it should be now it's Chief Information Officer, Chief Sam Nixon. Thank you. Sam Nixon, thank you very much for being on This Week in Richmond.
Thank you, Dave. It's my pleasure.
As we come back to This Week in Richmond, Craig Carper, WCVE, television, radio, here, people in the greater Richmond area know you, and also now, president of the Virginia Capital Correspondents Association.
Yes, for a little while longer. I'll be doing that, I guess, through February. I'm counting the days.
Yes, right. But
it's fun. It's good. It's a different thing to do.
Yes.
But,
we're having the conversation continuing on the same day as we were talking with Sam Nixon. It's Tuesday, May 13. It's been a big week already here in Richmond. And so let's start with your giving our statewide viewers some update on what's happened in the last 24 hours.
Oh, sure. Well, I guess most recently, we'll go back 24 hours. Let's start there. Yesterday, Governor McCall.
And yesterday being Monday.
Yesterday, Monday, the 12th? Is
Yes,
that right?
yes,
Right. Okay,
right.
12, Monday the 12th. The governor took some executive action on some women's health issues. He directed the State Board of Health to re-examine, to review some of the controversial regulations that were introduced last year or voted on last year by the Board of Health. A lot of those, they were pretty wide-ranging new regulations, but they treated these clinics in much the same way that hospitals would be treated. Some of the things that opponents got most upset about there were the structural requirements. These things involved number of parking spaces that had to be outside, the clearing space for an ambulance to pull up, and the width of hallways and stairwells for getting gurneys in and out. So a lot of the clinics had argued that these were, onerous and cases of over-regulation that were unnecessary to provide women's health, and they argue more targeted toward running these types of clinics who provide abortion services out of business. The governor yesterday said he wants them to take another look at that. He was, a big defender of women's issues during the campaign, and he said he describes himself as a brick wall to women's reproductive rights. So he directed that review. He also appointed 5 new members to the 15-person board. He has, I think most parties agree that he needs to switch, I believe, 6 more members there to really change the outcome, to hold a new vote and do that. He also did a couple of other things, appointing a couple of people to key positions, assistant position level positions in the cabinet, looking at women's issues, as well as directing state agencies to pursue some discounted drug pricing for testing and treatment programs for STDs.
And one of those people, certainly known here in the greater Richmond area, was former delegate Catherine Waddell.
That's right.
Who now will be a special assistant to LeVar Stoney, Secretary of the Commonwealth, with pertaining to women's issues and all those appointments that the Secretary of the Commonwealth recommends to the governor.
I think some 900 that the governor has the authority to appoint, and they're kind of in flux. They expire and start at different times throughout the administration. So I think it's every Friday we get a list of emails, a long, lengthy list of emails of new appointments.
More appointments.
Sometimes you can lose yourself in those. There's a lot going on.
And so now today, Tuesday the 13th, what news today?
Big news today. The opening arguments in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals appealing the same-sex marriage challenge to Virginia's same-sex marriage ban here in Virginia. This was just oral arguments. Both sides had 30 minutes to make their case. Opponents of overturning the ban, defenders of what they would say is traditional marriage, one man, one woman, talking a lot about procreation, and that is really something that is unique to traditional marriage. And then this same-sex couples arguing and their attorneys arguing that really they produce loving families as well, and that the children, their biological or adopted children, have just as much of a right to live in a 2-parent household. So it's May, early May now. We may not see a decision for another. I've heard windows from 3 weeks to maybe 3 months before we'll actually hear a written decision. Both sides expected to ultimately, whoever loses will appeal that, likely to the U.S. Supreme Court. Then the court will have to decide whether they will hear Virginia's case or one of the other I think it's 8 or 9 cases going on right now at the national in different states across the nation.
And I guess depending on that timing, that would fall into the courts next year.
Right, the 2015 term. So we're looking at a while before there's any kind of resolution here. A lot of the discussion today was on whether if the Fourth Circuit overturns or if it defends the original Judge Wright Allen's decision to overturn the ban, will couples be able to get married right away? That's still not clear. The AG's office had previously filed to have a stay, just so people can, he said, so these couples can have a sense of finality to these situations, so you don't have people rushing out, same-sex couples rushing out to get married, then being told later that those marriages were invalidated.
In our closing minute, so what's going to happen to the state budget?
I know, but I'm not telling anyone. I think that's the big question right now. The House Appropriations Chairman Chris Jones sent a letter this week to the co-chairman of Senate Finance, kind of stressing the importance of passing a budget, any budget, with preferably from the House's perspective without Medicaid expansion, because of its negative effect it could possibly have on our AAA bond rating. I think that's one of their stronger talking points right now. It's one they keep repeating, and it's one that we'll see for a while. I think the governor's also trying to determine right now what authority he has, if any, to expand Medicaid on his own executively, because I think most signs indicate that if he does determine that he has that power, he will likely do so, which will, they can, in that case, they could decouple the budget, as the House Republicans have been asking for months.
So we can tell the viewers to literally stay tuned.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
they will be hearing, the news will be coming. Craig, thank you very much for being on This Week in Richmond. You've been on before with some of your colleagues. We appreciate that. And to our viewers, we'll be back with other cabinet members and other key decision makers and people in the know like Craig here around Capitol Square. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.